en eski ve en yeni yatırımcıların rüzgar enerjisi yatırımlarına nasıl ve hangi
So in this session, we will focus on investments and the experiences, how the financing conditions changed, how previous partnerships were formed to shape the future, which mistakes were done, and all the cumulative experience is going to be the focus of this session, and the moderator will be the GM of Artı Bir Energy, Güray Erol. Welcome. And surely we'll be joined by prestigious panelists. Never stop applauding, please. And I kindly invite Erdinç Çetin from Zorlu Energy, the Deputy GM. And I also invite Renaissance Energy Board Member Emre Hatem, Şule Energy GM Oğuzhan Haznedar, and I also invite Şevval Şengör from Enrusa Üretim and Tallery Energy GM Bekir Turhan Çorbacıoğlu. Welcome, distinguished panelists, and I now leave the floor to Güray Erol to moderate this session. Let me see the time allocated for the session. 50, okay. 50 minutes to an hour, all right. Let's start the countdown so you can keep an eye. Please be seated, thank you. And the floor is yours now.
Herkese iyi günler. TÜREK 12. versiyon 12 yıldır kesintisiz.
Hello. It's been 12 years since TÜREK turned out to be the meeting point of the industry. This is the 12th session, and thank you so much for your attention and participation, and thank you to all panelists in advance. And let's start by celebrating the centennial of our republic. This is so valuable and meaningful for the republic. So this is the second century of our country, of our republic, and we want to do so much more. If we want to do so much more, if we want to succeed more, then we have to turn back to the past to see what we have done, what the experience was. We wanted to bring different stories together, actually, in this session. And the last 15 years has been the period in which we've been the most active. And since 2010, plans started to be installed, and for all stakeholders of the industry, that is the milestone when we started to accumulate information, knowledge, and experience. Not everything has changed, but a lot has. Technology change, legislation, permits, investors, the climate, teams, professionalism, turbines, components, technology, everything has changed, and we want to talk about all of it. We're joined by distinguished panelists with great backgrounds, but also their corporate experience is great, and we want to give them a voice. So, of course, I'm going to ask all panelists a couple of questions. I want to have 2 rounds, and I hope we can have some time for Q&A as well. But in the last 15 years, we've gained experience, the means and capabilities for logistics, transport developed, and unfortunately, costs have risen as well, relatively, but still dated. But the belief and the opportunities for the sector has also developed tremendously. We're talking about 12 gigawatts and we want to triple it. Sure, but this requires experience and the talk has to start from today. So let's start with Mr. Erdinç Çetin, who is representing Zorlu Energy. And we want to hear your experience and what Zorlu has done. Zorlu is not just an investor now. Zorlu also wants to offer OEM solutions. So yes, you're one of the early players, you're one of the first investors. How were the early days? What were the obstacles and challenges back then? What were your projects? How much of it was realized? Are you satisfied? How was the return? But also, you're in the verge of embarking on a new journey and what's happening on that front as well. We want to hear it all. Thank you for the opportunity and thanks, a special thanks to the audience for still being here with us on this time of the day. So yes, after the liberalization in 2006, projects started to be developed. I was on the project side, and then I assumed some responsibilities in the financing world. Then I returned to project world. So I know a bit of both business development and the financing realms. The very first plant was the first and the largest, 135 megawatts. It was quite a challenge in terms of technical specifications. No qualified staff, no one knows about it, no proper expertise, and remember the economic crisis of the 2008. We were challenged in all fronts, but the demand was huge. It was a global demand, you know. It was a seller's market for wind, and that's when we were trying to invest, but somehow we found the financing thanks to IFIs, and we realized the project, and we fulfilled the extension side. And what was the lesson? Well, I mean, we trained ourselves incredible on the technical side. We realized that we've made some mistakes. We had to relocate some of the turbines, but we accepted our mistakes, saw them as, you know, learning curve, and then we moved on. Then we established the first plant for Paris, and then we started to focus on geothermal. And there are some you know, good stories behind it, I'll tell you. And in the post-pandemic era, you know, outsourcing internationally turned out to be a challenge, and we are not considering a new business area because we want to. It's because out of necessity. It's because we want to become kind of, you know, self-sufficient. Now we have a 750 square meter indoor facility. And now we want to offer after-sale services, and we are, you know, carrying out the necessary planning and organizing for that. So this was our need. But can you imagine sending all the gearbox and everything abroad for any service or maintenance need? It would take too much time, so that is why we're investing. All right, thank you for the answer. And now let's continue with someone who we often visit when we need financing, and we have worked around the clock back in the day, but now Renaissance Energy is a great investor as well. So Mr. Emre Hatem, you've been in the business for a long time, so I want to ask how the situation was in the past and how it changed over time. And now that you're wearing an investor hat as well, with international names, so this is a new era for you, but what are the vulnerabilities and what opportunities lie ahead? Thank you. Thank you for bearing with us. Okay, I think you can hear me better now. My apologies. Can you hear us right now? All right. Okay, once again, thank you so much for bearing with us and this late time of the day. It's been 24 years since I started my career in the banking world, and I had the opportunity to finance various, like hundreds of projects, from natural gas to coal, biomass, geothermal, RES, the wind projects, solar projects, you name it. I experienced a lot of it. But yes, let's take a look in the past. How was it in the early days? And I'll also talk about where we are today. Well, in the past, the industry received heavy investments, over 100 billion. That's the amount of the last 20 years. And Turkish banks supported greatly. They offered approximately $16 billion of loans. It all started with hydroelectric. It all started with hydroelectric, and then came the privatization. I'm talking about coal. But wind got on the stage in 2015 and it accelerated very quickly. So there were like periods in time that we financed different projects. And standing here today, I can tell you that the success story is a great one. Approximately 40% of our electricity is generated from green sources. Again, installed capacity is good. Experience was great, and according to our calculations, the total green energy of 58,000 megawatts reduces 110 million emissions. We got rid of more than 100 million cubic meters of natural gas. That means like $10 billion of savings, and you do the math for a saving for a decade. These are great achievements, sure. But then, of course, we've made mistakes too, especially between 2010 2014. We never had any price support like REACTAM, and it was all financed through pricing risks. Natural gas projects or coal projects went through serious challenges, and then when the electricity prices dropped, people had great difficulties in paying their debt. And remember how that time was. Oil prices were hovering around $100, but then it suddenly dropped to $50. And of course, it was reflected in electricity prices. I'm sure some of you will remember. Electricity prices were like $100 megawatt per hour in 2014. But very rapidly it dropped to $50, and all the feasibility reports were projecting like $80 to $100. So it resulted in a very problematic non-performing loan situation, and this means 12 to 13 billion dollar worth of loan turned out to be non-performing. Some went through reconstruction, some were offered further maturity. They did this, they did that, they tried to, overcome, but some went through bankruptcy, and still today there are some projects that need reconstructing. But I mean, I'm talking about fossil fuels here. But then what did it all brought about? It dropped the appetite for further investments. And bank balance sheets had to carry this weight. Now the total worth of credit is around $400 billion. All credit cards and everything, but the non-performing is 1.5. But looking at energy, the share jumps to 5%. So the situation is worse. Non-performing loans are higher in energy side, and it usually comes from natural gas, coal, and the projects that are not benefiting from YEKDEM. So non-performing loans is a reality in the banking world. But what about the situation in wind? It is just the opposite, 180 reverse. Looking at wind, the installed capacity is around 12,000. The industry received more than $15 billion worth of investments, and of course banks financed it. And what is the non-performing loan situation in wind? Almost zero, nothing. Like apart from just one or two projects, there are no projects that are non-performing for banks, and that is crucial. This is important to know. So banks have an appetite for wind projects, and that appetite will only get better. And let me get to where I want to express. We had two major experiences. The financing of troubling projects, but also on the other side of the coin, very successful projects. So these are two sides of the coin. But what differentiated? What was the nuance here? Yekdem mechanism. I think this is entirely thanks to Yekdem mechanism, but I mean, that's how I see it. It has been one of the most successful mechanism in the history of Turkey. It eliminates the price risks in projects, so the portfolio doesn't turn out to be a troubling one or like a non-performing one. And this also stopped banks from getting the hit. But it also helped reduce emissions, it helped save on natural gas and the cost that comes with it. And it also created a downside trend for electricity prices. And like I said, it was the electricity prices were hovering around $100, but then it dropped to somewhere around 8. And thanks to Yekdem, it dropped even further below. So my long-term projection, so I mean the long-term story was that we never had to pay an extra premiums. And between 2015 and 2020, there was a subvention support, but taking a look at the long-term picture, Yekdam was great to reduce overall costs. What if we never had Yekdam? I mean, so many projects could not be realized. We would only focus on natural gas, and the cost and the overall expenditure in the system would skyrocket. So I'm telling you all of this, but why? I'm telling you this because there are success stories which should act like a guide. We should all take our lessons. In the 2005, 2020, 21, it was so successful, but then what happened? Yekdam went through a change in 2021, and because of this change, actually, after the following 2 years, banks stepped on the brakes because there wasn't collateral, there wasn't sufficient guarantees, and that 2 years period of time is lost. Now we're looking at Yekdem 3.0. A new mechanism was introduced, which is quite positive. Now they can assure collateral and guarantee to the banks. And like I said, there were good stories and bad stories, but we should see them and take our lessons and move forward accordingly. Thanks. Yes, our sector grows in terms of experience, sophistication, know-how, and the project stock is so high that it's going to be even more important in the future. But now, let's continue with Oğuzhan Haznedar from Şule Energy. You have penetrated the energy sector recently, and you are working on a project that says hello to the wind realm. How was that switch from industry to energy and the wind? What was your motivation? What convinced you to take this step? And what is your experience? Actually, Şule Energy is a subsidiary of Tat Metal. Tat Metal is one of the largest industrial organizations. We are manufacturing steel products in Zonguldak, Ereğli, in the Black Sea region. We established a factory and we are exporting to 70 countries. We are exporting to Europe, and our products range from automotive, white goods, energy, construction. We offer added value to all industries here. Of course, our priority was always to be efficient, and we want to make sure that we are improving our factories all the time, to make things efficient with each passing day. As you know, there are ambitious goals for reducing carbon emissions, and steel is among those sectors. So we wanted to reduce electricity costs. That is why we decided to invest on renewables. And also let me tell you a bit about this unlicensed generation. Sorry. When the regulation was put into effect in 2010, there was a cap for 500 megawatts. Oh, sorry, kilowatts. And there were some limitations on plant capacity. So that is why I think wind could not develop that well. Because the expectation was that you don't need any measurements, you never needed to set up a company, and that is why the capacity building stagnated. But solar received some good opportunities. The cap was brought higher. It was announced that the limit was 1 megawatts, and comparing wind and solar, the difference was huge. You can see the figures in the Ministry of Energy. 70 megawatts of installed capacity is there for wind, but for solar, the capacity was around 6,000 megawatts. Another important factor was the upper limit. Regardless of the consumption, the limit was 1 megawatt. But then it turned into an investment model. In the wind, the return was 7.3 kilowatts per hour, but in solar it was 13.2, so solar looked more, appealing. That is why, because of the regulation, the capacity could not be built in wind side. But in solar, so many companies were established to reach 5 or 6 megawatts of capacity. And this also turned into an investment model. But it wasn't serving SMEs or the industry. So once that capacity was hit, it was realized that the benefit wasn't where it was expected. So then authorities started to focus on a better mechanism. And then YEKAM model was introduced. As you know, in Karapınar, it was decided that there should be a plant with the capacity of up to 1 gigawatt. Yes, our essential business was in steel, but raw materials was a great expense, but so was the electricity consumption. And surely we wanted to reduce cost, and we wanted to do something with the carbon border. We didn't want to face additional taxes, and then we decided to invest in renewable energy. Now, because of that regulation, we could not develop wind, but we installed solar farms on roofs. We have this good facility in Karadeniz Ereğli. We have 100,000 square meters of a facility. And we built a solar plant of 9.2 megawatts, so we are generating our electricity for the facility. And apart from that, within the transmission network, we are still working on a solar farm that would sit on 8,000 square meter land. But such steps will only cover 12% of our overall consumption, so we needed more energy. And then we turned out to be a licensed project generator. And there was this land in the border of two cities, Isparta and Konya. So we will have another plant so that we can get closer to become self-sufficient. But the ultimate target here is to become self-sufficient, like I said. And we wanted to also bring about a competitive environment here, because we are mainly exporting to Europe. I mean, half of our exports go to Europe. And when it comes to carbon border adjustments, I mean, such a reality could challenge our trade. And that is why we are heavily investing in renewables to make sure we are generating for our own consumption, but to become more competitive. Thank you. I mean, it is great to hear. I mean, it's great to see such a big big player joining in the industry, and also the Green Deal will introduce carbon border tax, but it could, yes, challenge a country like Turkey, and we hear that you are taking solid steps. May it be successful. I hope you will let us know the success.
Ufak
I will give the floor to Şevval, but before that, I will take 1 minute to talk about something. For every Congress, Turev team starts to work 9 months ago to selection of the venue, selection of the guests, identification of the topics of the sessions, distribution of the topics to the participant speakers, panels. And Ufuk really played a big role in organization of the panels. And I was asking to have people coming from the field in my session, and I'm so happy to see you here, Şevval, a female engineer, young person, and also coming from the field. So we need your experience as a female engineer working in an enterprise, and for the last 4 years you have been working with different turbine technologies. What did you accumulate so far as experience? Technology made your life easier or more difficult? And also, I believe you have a presentation for your company. Thank you, Mr. Erol. First of all, personally and on behalf of Enerjisa production, I would like to thank everyone for inviting me. I'm so proud to be here as a women engineer. Thank you for the invitation. As Enerjisa, our motto is to produce energy for future with respect to life. So what do we mean by this? We attach great importance to well-being of our employees and also well-being of the environment. And we respect the ecosystem with which we interact. So we give also support to women employment, and along with our suppliers, along with our service providers, we are running projects. By doing so, we want to carry further the social development. So what do we do or what do we rely on when doing this? We have 24 production houses, the power plants in Enerjisa. In total, we have 3,747 megawatt installed capacity. We have strategic objectives and goals, and similarly, digitalization is an important area for us, and we also want to get differentiated from our competitors in the energy market. In short run, we want to reach an installed capacity of 5,000 megawatts, and our future investments will be in the field of wind and solar. So this green transformation or decarbonization, these are objectives in the world, and in Turkey we want to be a part of it. We have been awarded a YEKA tender in Aydın, Balıkesir, Çanakkale and Muğla in 4 provinces. It's about 1,000 megawatt. We have been awarded the tender and we will sign the contract, and we have 55% localness condition. In Aydın, currently installation is under construction. Almost all our power plants are renewables, and in Bandırma we also have a natural gas power plant as well. We have hydroelectrical power plants as well, and very recently we started to have a power plant for wind energy, and this process is going on now. And also, under the digitalization pillar, we are conducting joint projects with universities and startups. Every turbine, we are working with every turbine brands, turbine manufacturing companies, electrically, mechanically. They may render to the same service. However, the turbines have different characteristics from one another. So what is important is to compile the old data with the real-time data, and to come to some preventive maintenance activities in line with the analysis. So we want to make the highest production possible. We can move forward in my presentation. You can get more slides ahead. Here, I can talk about the field where I wanted to share my own pictures. I have been working in wind energy sector for 4 years, and I have a hybrid model of work. Sometimes when the wind is favorable, I go to the maintenance in the field. I also work in the office. I also work the underground cabling work as well. So as a women engineer, I try to inspire young people, the students. This is a male-dominated industry, so I don't want it to be so. I want to change this, and I believe I can, or we can, achieve this. Maybe some people may suggest that it requires some muscle power, but if we know it well, and if we can use the tools well without any physical muscle power requirement, we can do it very good. So a picture with the teammates when we go to inspections in the turbines. We do this and we take pictures. It's so nice to work as a team, togetherness. So buying the work you do. I work with a very nice team. So in total we have 6 wind power plants with different turbine numbers and different models. General Electric, Siemens, Nordex and Senvion. These are the portfolio of our turbines. Our first investment in wind power was in 2011, and it was in Çanakkale. And with YEKA projects, our investments continue. Here I would like to highlight this. To compare the year 2011 with the year 2023 in terms of operation, the technology advanced, we have digitalization, and back in 2011, this market was so premature. We were having problems about labor force, the regulation tools. Technically, we were dependent on foreign countries, international market, but now with the trainings, with the experience, we have accumulation of knowledge and experience, so we have come to a maturity. You can make a comparison, you can make an analogy like learning a different, a foreign language. It's like you just start to learn a language, but 10 years later, as you accumulate knowledge and experience, you are proficient in that language. Currently, for example, technically, we have considerably reduced our dependency on import. The towers, the blades, generators, some other components, valuable components, I mean, we can have them manufactured in Turkey, and with this we are reducing the dependency, external dependency of our country. I believe we have made very good steps for that. So we have developed capacity, our local staff acquired knowledge and experience, so it made it so easier to do the operations. And one last point I would like to make, as Enerjisa Üretim, we have some modules for digitalization. With these modules we can do the maintenance, work in the turbines. We have checklist integrated into the application. With a virtual glass, a pair of virtual glasses help us train the staff, who starts who newly. They can simulate it. And Mr. Güray Erol, one more point I would like to add if I have time. You have a tiny time. I have a dream, and if you ask me what that dream is, in wind industry, female employment, technically and management-wise, should increase. This is my dream. Under my company, Enerjisa Üretim, actually we have prepared so many programs to increase involvement of women in both manufacturing, technically and also management. For example, this is one of them, women who translate wind into power. And also there can be technical trainings for GVOs or some technicians. So maybe we can disseminate, roll out these trainings to more women, and so that women can become more active in this industry. Thank you. Şevval, thank you so much. Now we will go to the public side, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Bekir Turhan Çorbacıoğlu, who holds a great many experience both in the industry and also on the regulation side. So what has changed? First of all, thank you so much for your kind invitation to the panel. And I also would like to thank all the staff of TUREV for organizing this TWAC Congress. This is the final session, and we are the ones to close it all together. It is so nice to become a stakeholder of the Wind of Turkey, be it a member of public side or the private sector side. Both on public sector and private sector, you are a part of this asset, this value. So knowing this, being cognizant of this, means a lot. And this is an achievement. This is a creation, and it will continue with the next generations. It is so nice to know that. From the perspective of public side, or from the perspective of the private sector side, of course, there are some gaps in these perspectives when they are alone. But when you merge them, that's really assuring, because I've seen it. On the public side, there are some sensitivities. Once you make a decision, you need to understand how it is going to reflect on all the stakeholders, all the ecosystem. So from the private sector side, most of the time we submit our requests, and most of the time we limit ourselves with a solution of the problem which we encounter during the project. And we think that once that problem is solved, we can continue the investment. However, from the public authority side, you do not take palliative measures. You need to have a holistic perspective, and you need to correct the regulations so that this kind of a problem never emerges again. So this is how you have to look at it. But now here, we are conducting consultation meeting, consultative processes are going on, bringing together public and private. So this is very nice. And another important thing is experience. In our country, if we can convey experience and if we can exchange experience, that would actually prevent a waste, because we are always talking about human resources, costs, and at the end of the day, you need to make an investment, you need to operate it, and you need to get the return. Therefore, all the stakeholders here using the winds properly, banks are financing, the public regulates, so here we have a chance because every aspect of this topic is here. In a wind power plant, more than one discipline work together. For example, for a loader crane operator, you select a site, the capability of operation matters, the issue for the constructor, for the transport, the declination, inclination, for a forest engineer. There are lots of other things to consider. There are also other disciplines in natural parks and natural conservation department. There can be an endemic species. For electric and electronic engineers, there are lots of components coming together. And from the building perspective as well, building development perspective, there are licenses and other things. So when you go to the public side, you have an area which is well defined, and you have constraints in this, and you need to be in that frame. So this is an area in which I see the highest number of disciplines work together. And on top of that, please add the financial institutions. So I want to make a self-criticism on behalf of the private sector. So once you amend the things, you need more time. You need to update the permissions. And on the public side, when we start the work, we need to conduct the constraints analysis properly. There are some marginal preventive constraints. For example, the army may give a negative opinion, technical interaction analysis, or something like that. And also, there are some constraints, limitations regarding property, ownership. You can do a micro-siting on the field, but then you need to make an amendment. This is the real problem. And from the perspective of public sector, yes, private sector wants facilitation and acceleration of the work, but there is not one single public authority. It is not only the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources or Ministry of transport and infrastructure. There are lots of different ministries and different public authorities. You have to interact with all of them. Once the constraint analysis is done, maybe in order that the public authority helps the investors who make their homework, there are a couple of best practices I have seen abroad. There are some places where you cannot do anything, but except for those, there can be some conditional permits which can accelerate the work. Yeah, sometimes we can update the software. Sometimes on the TEİAŞ side, we can go into more costly solutions about the grids, the lines. Maybe we can reduce the amount of the constraints about forests. We can save time so that we can implement the investment as soon as possible to reach the best, most appropriate turbine spots. And by doing so, you can generate electricity as soon as possible, which will have an impact on the current deficits of the countries. You can create added value, be in the private sector or be in the public sector or be in the financial institution. Just become a part of this team and just enjoy it. That's very nice. That would be great. Just as a footnote, all the suppliers, turbine manufacturers, constructors in wind energy sector, this is a footnote for the public side, by the way. Actually, everyone tries to work with a well-written document. There are some bad things, like we do not want to see anymore. The earthquake, for example, the devastating earthquake. There are some power plants that are really close to the fault lines. In that part about our basic structures, and you are also a part of the industry, there are really interesting building and construction activities, and these are dynamic products. And physically, those power plants survived. They didn't collapse, and they kept on operating even though they were hit by such a devastating earthquake. So maybe the public side can think that, so this is an experience, as I explained in the beginning of my words. Yes, this has been tested. The wind industry has already passed this test vis-a-vis really unfavorable conditions, which is a devastating earthquake. So we need to think this. So the public authority should trust us. And we love the public authority. They are a part of the family, and we have this trust for them as well. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, we had this conversation before this session, and I just brought together the experience of our panel, which is 83-year experience in wind energy. We are coming to the end of our time. Actually, with this experience, based on this experience, I will ask you some tag questions, yes or no. Is it now easier or more difficult to do business in wind energy sector now? Let's start from you, Mr. Çorbacıoğlu. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, it became more difficult. Şevval, for you? I think it's been easier. I spent so many years in Siemens. We conducted so many projects. I say both yes and no, both easier and more difficult. In some fields, it's been easier. thanks to accumulation of knowledge and experience, there are lots of companies competent. However, the conditions are more difficult now because we have already finished with the easy sites and difficult sites are in front of us. I agree with Oğuzhan. Just to give an example, between 2018 to 2021, it was easier. Finance was easier, interest rates were less, and the project stock was favorable because there were lots of projects. Permits were already granted, the construction licenses were given. So, in average, in those 4 years, we conducted investments 1,000 megawatt per year. But in the last 2 years, just the opposite. It's becoming more difficult. There are a couple of reasons. The banks are not receiving a sufficient number of projects, and the permits are getting longer to take. So mature projects are no longer there, and also the interest rates are. So, and for you, I hope from now on it will be easier. Thank you so much. So we close the panel. I will also look at the audience if they have a question, but I will just make a summary. In the last 10 years, 15 years, many things have changed in the world. The first measurement towers were 40 meters. Today, they are 100 meters. And 2 megawatt or 3 megawatt turbines were really exciting for us. But today, onshore, it is 7, 8, and in offshore, it is 10, 15 megawatts. And storage has become a reality in Turkey. This will start to be debated, both in terms of supply, in terms of engineering. It's going to be a reality in our lives. So every year, when we look at the titles of the panels in this Congress, we see the change. So whatever I see in the world, life is becoming better, and the future is bright for both Turkey and for the globe. Every country wants to do more in this industry. I would like to thank my panel. If we have questions from the audience, we will receive it. But before that, I have a question for the audience. The 1st of November 2007 is the starting date. Is there anyone here who was actively working in industry back then, on the 1st of November 2007, which is the starting date of wind energy? I believe the new generation is here, mainly. So, I'm just looking at the audience. If they have questions, we will receive. Now, if there is any question from the audience, we will pass the microphone. Well, please introduce yourself first. Thank you for this organization, for this Congress. Throughout 2 days, we really learned a lot. My name is Yahya Temel Tautus. I am an investment advisor. My specialty is the government subsidies, grants, and loans. And in the morning, we were having this conversation with Mr. Minister. And as you know, renewable energy investments enjoy the 4th zone incentives. And so they are under the incentives of Zone 4. And there is the incentive of interest, 4-point interest support. That's not a big number, 1.4 million Turkish lira, but in the end it's a support to the producer. Are you going to have an initiative about this? Because you are making an investment. Maybe it's not a big amount Yeah, but for other industries, there is this support, but in this one, we don't have this support. Why not? Are you going to make an initiative? Is there anyone who would like to take the floor? Or as the moderator, I can give an answer. This is a decision to be made by the public authority. So whatever we say can be just an expectation. So incentive mechanisms are really interesting all around the world. You need a sparkle to start it, and then as the industries mature up, those incentives just step back gradually. So these incentives are really responding to many investments, and hopefully we will have this interest support, especially in such an environment where we have very high interest rates in Turkey.
Kıvanç Enerji Mehmet Kıvanç.
Kıvanç Enerji, Mehmet Kıvanç. I have a question for Emre Hatem. You are quite an experienced project financer, but if you were to invest in wind, solar, hydrogen, whichever, which sector, which industry would you invest in? Thank you for your kind words. As Renaissance Energy, we are in this heavy investment phase, and main focus is on wind and solar, because both the risk profile and the financing capabilities and the returns appear the most optimal. But of course, you have to keep up with new technologies. You have to keep up with the latest. But what should we focus on? Photovoltaic, meaning solar, and wind. But I'm talking about onshore. But surely in the future you can consider offshore as well. But it's still early for that. I should also let you know that we are partnering with Total Energy. As you know, it's an international name, a French company. They partnered up, and together with Total Energy, I hope in the coming 5 years we will have an investment of 2,000 megawatts, focusing on solar and wind. Emre, is this an investment strategy? Is this an advice? Is this how we should take it? So we heard that there's going to be a positive revision on the interest rate side. We heard this piece of good news. There was a question, so this is the latest. Okay, I suppose there is another question coming from the backside of the hall. Could you come forward? Let's unite. Hello, I'm Dilay Küçükali. I'm a lawyer. I'm trying to get to know the industry. Maybe Mr. Emre Hatem could answer, but while following you, a question popped up in my mind. So from past to present day, so you covered so many different aspects, but when it comes to the financing of projects, could you share some specific comparisons? I mean, how do you see the industry as it is today, and where do you see the risks, and what is your take on the international law? Thank you for the question. Yes, financing is indispensable. I checked the figures just 2 days ago. I checked the current situation of the banks in terms of energy sector, and unfortunately, in the last 6 months, energy loans dropped by 5%. And usually energy comes like number 1 for banks to finance, but now they rank number 2. So in Turkish banks, energy sector is slowing down, but transport is getting the share. And there are so many factors. Like I said, the project stock is low right now. Costs have skyrocketed. So here's an example. In the last 15 years, and I mean, it's been 24, 25 years for me, but in the last 15 years, the average interest rate was around 7 or 8%. That's the 15-day average. But now we're talking about 12 or 13%. So there is a 5% increase. It got very expensive, and it's not that easy to have access because now it is heavily regulated. So this is extraordinary times, unprecedented times for us, and we need to find alternatives. I don't want to go into too much detail, but go abroad, or like ECA credits, ECA loans, and that's what we are doing. Yes, interest rates are high in Turkish banks, but we never give up. We look abroad because the opportunities are great. Maturities go as high as 20 years. Interest rates are reasonable, manageable, so you can focus on abroad, on international markets. But at the end of the day, this industry has accumulated a great deal of information. Both parties know everything from A to Z. And if you like information, there are great counseling services out there. There are leading companies too offering consultation and everything. But apart from, generating good projects, we need to see a normalization in markets, and we need to know ways of how to attract international financing capabilities. The latest, let me share some current figures. We're gonna need 10 to 15 billion dollars of capital. We can make like 5 billion of it on our own, but for the rest, we need to find it somewhere else, and that's what we're working on. All right, one final question, if there is any, but if not, let's end the session. Hi, I'm an electric engineering student. My question is energy equipment. What is Turkey's position in equipments? Or how should our position be? Looking at Siemens or GE Electric, where are we? And where will we be 15 years later from now on? Thank you. Who would like to answer? Yeah, please go ahead. Well, I think first and foremost we have to become self-sufficient. I mean, you cannot produce everything from A to Z, but you can become self-sufficient in some ways, Maybe we can focus on that, but women and their participation in the industry, it's also crucial. So we need to become a comprehensive industry, and once you have your know-how, it'll also bring about cutting-edge technologies, but everything's gonna develop. Vehicles, batteries, energy, it's all going to develop, and it is the best time to join the game with all the EVs, charging stations, grids, networks, etc. So from generation to transmission, the industry is tremendously integrated. So you are a student, it is great to hear. Find what interests you the most and go ahead with it and shoot for the stars. Thank you. All right. So, dear panelists, thank you for your contribution, and the audience, thank you for your patience. Thank you for bearing with us. And with this session, it is the end of the 12th TÜREK. See you in 2024. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, yes, this is the end of the two-day Congress. Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Murat Çolakoğlu will offer you your plaques of appreciation, a token of appreciation. Well, the moderator was Artı1 Energy General Manager Güray Erol. So let's do it like this. Let's get you to this part of the stage. I mean, I'm just trying to give you a good-looking picture, yeah? Thank you. Thank you so much. Then we're gonna have a family photo together. Deputy GM of Zorlu Enerji Erdinç Çetin, thank you so much for being our panelist. Thank you. Rönesans Enerji board member Emre Hatem. Şule Enerji General Manager Oğuzhan Haznedar. Thank you. Enerjisa Arias Operations Engineer Şevval Encü. Tallery Energy General Manager Bekir Turan Çorbacıoğlu. Mr. Çorbacıoğlu, thank you so much for your contribution to the panel. And yes, a family photo with the moderator in the center.
Yardımcımızla birlikte, konuşmacılarımızla birlikte. Efendim, moderatörümüzün de söylediği gibi bitirdik, noktaladık.
Yes, this is the end. See you next year. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for staying up this late. You've been great. And I say this every single time. Let's see the full part of the whole.